Safari is Kenya's premier motorsports event, drawing a full house of 66 cars, and as they gathered at the landmark Kenyatta International Conference Center, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The Safari was also the second round of the 2010 FIA African Rally Championship, attracting entries from Uganda, Rwanda and Burundi, including the 2009 champion Jamie White, who was already well on his way to defending the title, having won round 1 in Tanzania. His biggest rival was Giancarlo Davite from Rwanda, who was lying second.
I will try to push Jamie. Best place is second, we say always, because you can push the first one, you can put the pressure. I will try to put my pressure on him, and then we'll see how he will react.
Drop of the flag, the 2010 KCB Safari Rally was underway, and they headed for the first stage of what would be a long 3-day event. The only section to be tackled on day 1 was a 2.5-kilometer stage, 10 kilometers from the start at the Jamhuri Park Showground. In anticipation, thousands turned out to watch, although when the drivers saw the conditions, it was more to find a possible way through than choosing the best lines. They got through, declaring the stage passable, and the remainder of the field set off at 2-minute intervals. 12 cars attempted the stage before the heavens opened, turning the track into a swamp and drenching the fans. This gave the rally lead to Jas Mangat and Olivia Megank, who recorded the fastest time, 1 second ahead of Assad and Salim Khan. The top 3 were all in Subaru N10s, with Imran Mughal and Atul Kochar in third. Day 2 of the Safari covered 428 kilometers, of which 146 were competitive. 11 stages were tackled, of which 5 were repeated twice, with the longest being 19 kilometers, and it was this stage that would be the most dramatic. Stages 4 and 10 were a 2-kilometer spectator stage, which would turn the fortunes of many. On the transport to the first control, the cars headed north towards Mount Kenya, passing the spectator stage on the way. At the stage commander was already concerned as to whether it would be passable.
It's very difficult for the Land Cruiser Umayona, yeah, and I think there's a possibility that the rally cars are going to get stuck.
The problem was a huge mud hole, which even the toughest of four-wheel drives were getting bogged down in.
It's kind of impossible because big cars, especially this car's sinking down. The rocks are hitting the sump, so we feel that the rally cars are going to have a bit of a problem. But I've communicated it to the CFC and all the officials, and waiting for a decision from there.
With the stage cleared and rescue heavyweights put on standby, the stage was declared open. They struggled past Chaga at the mud hole and went on to win the stage. They were fastest through 4 of the 6 opening stages of the day to take the rally lead by nearly a minute. Taken had incurred a 1-minute penalty for checking in early at a control, giving themselves even more work to do. They were quickest through the 2 opening stages, which, with the wet conditions, required extreme skill to get through quickly. They got past Chaga at the mud hole, but it was only under full throttle. Up ahead, they were forced to give time away when the engine developed a misfire, but was still quick enough to claim second. Carlo Davite and Sylvia Vindevogel were the first to suffer from the conditions, and their rally was about to turn into a nightmare. They went off early on, but it was typical of what all the cars were experiencing. Having recovered from that, they focused on catching Jamie White for the ARC honours. But this went by the board when they went off again. This time it was more serious, as they got stuck in a ditch where they would stay for 20 minutes. Giancarlo Davite eventually got out of the ditch and set up to recover the time lost. Almost immediately, they came across the Tidis, with Anthony Nielsen still there blocking the road. There was no chance of stopping on the slippery surface, and they hit Nielsen hard enough to send him back into Fatidis.
I really came really slow, but the car started to slip, and there was another car. I hit the car. That's the result you have there.
After the first 6 stages and 80 kilometers of competitive motoring, Alistair Kavanagh was in the lead by 56 seconds from Lee Rose. The times behind can be counted in minutes, as they were in the old days of the safari. The cars were now on the second loop of the stages, with Lee Rose and Piers Dakin running first on the road. And with the rain persisting throughout the day, the conditions continued to be a challenge. Whilst they were pushing hard, they were handed the rally lead when Alistair Kavanagh and Gavin Lawrence had this dramatic off. With so many spectators on the bend, it was fortunate that no one was injured. Kavanagh lost 5 minutes extracting the car, dropping them from first to third overall, but the extent of the damage would only be known once they reached service. Olivier Costa from Rwanda, partnered by Andrew Doig, were in 8th. Their sole aim was to finish the event, and although they could have gone faster, they were pacing their rally to stay out of trouble. Lee Rose was the new rally leader with a margin of 13 seconds over Jamie White, with Alistair Kavanagh now in third, over 2 minutes behind. The only other driver in contention was Baldev Chaga in fourth. After their earlier problems, Giancarlo Davite and Sylvia Wintervogel had put it all behind them and were back on form. On stage 8, they caught Olivier Costa, but there was no chance of overtaking, and they remained behind to the end of the section. They climbed 8 places on the leaderboard, but were still 4th amongst the ARC contenders, which they would deal with on leg 2. The rally had reached the halfway point with Lee Rose in the lead by just over 2 minutes from Jamie White. The only change was that Peter Horsey had dislodged Phidias Kimathi for 5th. Had a 2-minute lead, it was not enough for them to relax, and they set off to increase the cushion. They had already proved they were faster than the others, and it was just a case of driving sensibly. Although they didn't set the quickest times over the first loop, they gained another 3 minutes, extending their lead even further. With only 2 stages and 80 kilometers of competitive motoring remaining, Lee Rose had a commanding lead of over 5 minutes. Focus was now on who would come second, with Baldev Chaga less than a minute behind Jamie White. For Giancarlo Davite and Sylvia Wintervogel, the ARC race was far from over. They were coming last, and with Jamie White too far ahead, they set their sights on catching the Thies. After 2 stages, they reduced the gap between them to 4 minutes. Giancarlo Davite and Sylvia Wintervogel put in their best performance of the rally, and not only closed the gap on the Thies, but gained a further 44 seconds, tickling second in the ARC. Finishing 12th was academic.
We finished well, but yesterday it was a nightmare.
Sylvia, why does he always bang the car on your side?
He wants to protect himself. He has a big heart, he has to protect himself. But it's okay, forgiven, we did a good job today, it was really nice.
The only other foreigner still running was Olivier Costa from Rwanda, navigated by Andrew Doig. On day 1, they'd lost time with broken brake pipes and a fuel pump which fell off its mounting. On day 2, they made up some of the time and were not disappointed to finish 10th. Lee Rose and Piers Dakin were oblivious to all the drama going on behind, and in the knowledge they had time in hand, drove fast but safe. For them, the final 20-kilometer stage was the longest of the rally, as they anxiously counted down the miles to the final control. For the second time,